So I'm not sure if you guys have heard of a gentleman by the name of Juan O. Savin. And Juan O. Savin likes to make videos where he gives you updates on what's going on, in particular in America, as well as around the world, and you never see his face. In my case, you guys know what I look like, but one second, let me see. I'll turn the mic on and you guys will tell me if it's working or not. Check 1 2, let me know. So you never see his face. There are people who speculate that Juan O. Savin is John F. Kennedy Jr., JFK Jr. That's an interesting theory that people have, that supposedly JFK Jr. never died, and that's this guy. Those of you guys are probably asking, say, Tzvi, why do you have a mosquito zapper and your window's closed? Well, I'll tell you guys something. I have Mossad mosquitoes who like to come into my room. These guys are like Shin Bet mixed with Spetsnaz mosquitoes. So I err on the side of caution. So so this guy talks to people. He makes videos on YouTube, and he posts them on YouTube as well as on Rumble, and you never see his face. The only thing you see is his cowboy boots. And obviously, the whatever view he's got outside of his window. Shalom, everybody. Just let me know if you guys can hear me well. I just plugged in this mic. So I've been having a lot of conversations with some friends, maybe the past week or two, about where everything is headed in terms of, I guess the monetary system of America, really. And you guys probably heard the guy who invented McAfee antivirus software. His name is John McAfee, naturally. It's not always the case that the person who's named after or the software is named after the guy, but in this case it is. So he supposedly passed away from suicide in prison, supposedly, allegedly. And the interesting part is that they found some of his tweets from a year ago, 2 years ago, where he basically said, and even more recently, he said that, listen, I'm in sorry guys, I'm just getting bitten. He said, I'm in prison, and if I die, it's not because I killed myself. And then he shows another tweet of a tattoo that he has that says whacked, WHAKD. It's a real tattoo that he had. And then you can go and you can find an actual cryptocurrency with the same spelling that he actually released. Not only that, guys, he was tweeting out 2 years ago that apparently he's got all kinds of information on certain people. 31 terabytes of information. And so I've been talking to some friends of mine, and I'm telling them about cryptocurrencies and the blockchain and all these things. And I have a few friends who are saying, well, all this stuff is like nonsense because, there's no use cases. Who's buying anything with Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrencies, right? Is this legal tender? Who's using this as money? And I said, you're not understanding. Right now, this is not about it being legal tender. It's about the fact that it is basically code. It's data. It's something that is used to keep records of things. And these are records that are untamperable. Sure, somebody can hack into your wallet and steal Bitcoin or whatever it is, or any coin out of the 11,000 coins that exist on planet Earth. Different kind of tokens, right? The dog ones and all this kind of stuff. Some of them are connected to real tech projects. These are basically companies that instead of issuing stock and being listed on the stock exchange, they issue tokens that people can buy that are basically just representations of the value of these projects and or companies. And they don't have to answer to any SEC. They're completely decentralized. They're completely, or in the cloud, and they don't have to release, quarterly earnings reports. They, from time to time, release some sort of news item or have a news event or have some sort of, there's some rumor that swirls around that they're working on this and they're working on that. This is the difference. And I explained this to my friends and I said, right now, this is basically 25 or 20% currency, and 80% of it as a concept is just tech, whether you're talking about social media or you're talking about, what's it called? Not just fintech, but social media, IT, internet, anything to do with these things. You're basically liberating all of these things that are currently being controlled by governments and corporations that are in cahoots with governments or in cahoots with certain political movements one way or the other, whether it's left wing or right wing or everything in between. You're basically liberating all of these entities and all of these ecosystems. You're creating new ecosystems. And this is something, people keep talking about money. People keep talking about, that this is going to change the monetary system. That's besides the point. That's going to happen later. But what it's going to do in the immediate term is change the way social media and all these other things operate, if it hasn't already. And this is something that scares the living daylights out of these people. Exactly. It's for building something. And you know what's crazy, guys? There's a tech, the main tech is blockchain. So now you have Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin, what I like to call the Zach Morris phone of crypto. Bitcoin is the first. The whole hop, as we say in the Jewish world, is that it is a low supply. But the only drawback with Bitcoin, or there's two drawbacks actually, when you're mining it, you're using these giant machines that China and Iran just supposedly shut down. When you're mining it, you're using a lot of power, a ton of power. It sucks power like crazy. And the second thing is that it's the transaction speed is very, very slow, super duper slow. But it was the first. It's the daddy of them all. It's the big daddy. And there's a low supply, and the more people buy it, even fractions of Bitcoin, the more secure it is. That's the whole hop. So now you have a thing called Ethereum, so Bitcoin, we don't know who invented it. Some guy named Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't know who this person is. Some people claim they know who it is. They don't know who it is. We don't know. There are people who went on a limb and said it may even be extraterrestrials. Because there's some IT guys that said that we've never seen this kind of code made by humans, right? It's a different story, but then you have this thing called Ethereum. That's another token coin, which is the second largest one. And that runs on a separate kind of blockchain called ERC20, which is basically the underpinning of most of the coins that exist on planet Earth. ERC20 tokens. There's ERC20. I'm just giving you guys a crash course. This is basically it. And so now all these different companies, all different groups of people, loosely configured companies and projects are building different types of Bitcoin, different types of blockchain tech and blockchain structures and configurations and all these different things. And some of them are involved with internet, some of them are involved with social media, some do both. Many are involved in fintech, many are involved in just trading. And the interesting part is that, there was a discussion with the SEC, not with the SEC, but inside the financial apparatus, and also you could see it on CNBC. They spoke about it, that they're trying to figure out, is this a stock? Is this a currency? Why does it have, if it's a currency, why does it have a market capitalization? If you go on a website called coinmarketcap.com, they attempt to rank all these different coins according to market cap, right? When you take the supply of the coins, multiply it by the price. So some of these coins have supplies in the millions, multi-millions. Some of these coins have supply in the billions, some of them in the trillions, some of them in the quadrillions. It gets absurd, it gets ridiculous. But what's interesting, guys? I always like to say, and a lot of people joke, that the US dollar, we don't know what the supply is. We don't know what the supply is, and if we knew, then we would call it an SHIT coin that has a high supply and almost no intrinsic value. And the only reason it has any value as legal tender is because of the perception that people give it. It's basically a Ponzi game, right? A bigger Ponzi game than, some of these doggy coins, Dogecoin and all these other dog. It's a different story, different conversation. Actually connected to Mashiach. So, at least with these coins, we have a set supply. We know the supply is. Whether it's 170 billion for this coin, 60 million for Bitcoin, 16 million, 100, a trillion, a quadrillion, whatever it is, we know exactly the number. We can measure the market cap. So there's a discussion. These people are trying to figure out if this is not a stock, but it has a market cap. So the authorities don't know what to do with this. They don't know how to classify it. They don't know how to legally. So if they can't classify it legally, then that means that it's very difficult for them to take legal action against people who are involved in it. Who are not operating under their auspices, the auspices of the SEC or FINRA or anyone else. Especially since most of the exchanges and the brokers are based elsewhere, offshore. You're talking about Hong Kong, China, Singapore, Philippines, Seychelles, I don't know, Cyprus, you name it, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, whatever it is. There's a couple that are based in the States, and FINRA has their paws on that. And now you guys can see big banks, Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, they have, and what are they doing? They're releasing news reports or press releases on the same day, two conflicting quotes, two conflicting things. One guy from Goldman will say that they're telling their clients that crypto is not a viable investment. And then 2 hours later, they'll come out and say, hey, we just opened the crypto trading desk. So basically what they're saying is that it's not a good investment, but yet it's good to just trade it up and down, in and out. They're going to make money from it. They don't want you to make money from it. My friends, these people are shaking in their space boots. They can't control it. This is beyond just financial. It's social, it's political, it's social media, it's internet, it's everything that they think they can control, and they can no longer control it. And this thing is only growing. Even if you're talking about these SHIT coins, the doggies, the doges, excuse me. And this is all part of the Mashiach story, the Mashiach process, honestly. This is what I was telling a few friends. This goes way deeper than something financial. It goes way deeper, because if now you're talking about people not being beholden to the governments that have been controlling us, not just governments, but elites that are behind it, to where we went from being a capitalist system to something that's not capitalism, to something that's called cronyism, to where people are now succumbing, people who, are obsessed with communism and socialism, and they're saying, well, capitalism is horrible, so here's the alternative, which is we want to revert back to what was tried many, many times and killed many, many people, hundreds of millions of people, but they don't understand what they're actually rebelling against is not capitalism. It is something that became plutocracy. That's what it is. Whenever corporations are in cahoots with the government, and not only in cahoots, but they are, even the platform I'm speaking to you guys right now, they are controlling what we can say. You guys probably heard in Canada, they said, we're not going to let people gather because these people physically gather. These people are going to share unauthorized information. My friends, you know where this was done? In the Soviet flippin' Union. You can't gather in apartments. We're going to tap your walls and your phone. Guys, after we left Ukraine, after we left the Soviet Union, it wasn't a country called Ukraine. It was Ukrainian region, republic. My mother used to call my grandmother. My grandmother was still there in 1988, 89. And my grandmother said, Shah, speak quietly and or don't say the wrong things. Why? Because this phone is bugged. How do we know that? Because she said she was talking to her friends about her friend at work, from work, about the price of yarn, because the price of everything was controlled by the government. These were commodities. You're talking about something as simple as yarn, stuff that you sew with, that you make clothing with. And she mentioned that, my grandmother worked in a government office that counted inventory of government stock of different things. And she said she noticed that the price of yarn went up. And then you hear a click and somebody from the government, the KGB, goes on the phone. A third person joins like the party line, and he says, ladies, please change the subject. I repeat, ladies, please change the subject from yarn, or from the price of yarn, to something a little more, simpler. So my grandmother told my mother, who was my mother, we were in the States already, she said, watch what you say. So Canada doesn't want people gathering and talking about unauthorized information or unauthorized things. What that means, we don't know. We just know that it's something basically from the book 1984. And something that happened actually in reality to my parents. They lived through that. Ladies and gentlemen, so now, now that we understand that, where we're at, we understand what this blockchain thing represents. And there are technologies even that are past blockchain, post-blockchain, that are even more forward-thinking, like what's called dApps, distributed apps, something called holochain, which is even further. You're going further to, something that's transaction speed is infinite, very, very fast, doesn't require any energy, doesn't burn any energy or coal or gas or anything like that. It's all in the cloud. It doesn't even need, depending on the situation, a constant internet connection for people on the network to be able to communicate and or, swipe credit cards, for example, send emails, send chat. It's something that we have never seen. And now you're talking about, social media apps built on it. Facebook style apps built on something like this. You cannot collect data. You cannot censor people. You cannot, you don't need like buttons to keep people addicted to this dopamine. Even this website I run, it's the endless quest for dopamine. It's not even dopamine, endless quest for, reaction, validation, views, followers. That is not expression, my friends. That is a collective psychological problem. It's the search for, it's a search for validation from people you don't even flip and know. Right? It's just incredible if you think about it. On the one hand, it's that. On the other hand, it's, for the first time ever, people have their own television channels and radio channels, which is, again, that's something else. And the people who run these things realize that, hey, we can't give people too much power now. Well, let them have their Ben Shapiro's and their Candace Owenses. That's one thing. But when a person comes out and starts talking about McAfee and how McAfee was talking about stuff and they had to get rid of him and how he had information and they had to get rid of him. When you start going a little too deep, that's when you run into problems. And that's when you say, well, I can't wait till they come up with something that is just like Facebook and just like Twitter and just like all these things that I use, except my data is not going to be collected and I can't be banned for my opinion. Whether it's left wing or right wing or extreme over here, extreme over there, it doesn't matter. Like, my friend Ari Lewis said today on the podcast, we live in an adult world. We're adults. And when you're an adult, you have to be able to speak to people with whom you disagree. If you can't, then you're 5. You're a 5-year-old. So there are people, adults, who are basically 5-year-olds. They have not left that framework. And these are the people who are influencing government policy. They're influencing the people who are in charge right now. Whether it's Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. Or people here in Israel as well. It's not as bad with the whole woke thing here. It's not as bad. But in America and parts of Europe, it's on overdrive. So now, again, we go back to the blockchain technology. The governments are in their space boots, my friends, for the first time ever, shaking in their space boots. For the first time ever, you guys saw what happened with Reddit and the stock AMC and GameStop and all these other stocks. People can get together and basically find out that a giant billion-dollar hedge fund has some sort of exposure, short exposure in a stock. And now we have a bunch of people who are just going to kill they're going to make a lot of money, but they're also going to kill this hedge fund. And then you have the head of the hedge fund, unfortunately, the Jewish guy, old Jewish guy. He goes on CNBC and he starts crying. He says, this is a family business. What are these people doing? They're going to ruin the economy. They're going to ruin Wall Street, the rest of it. Meanwhile, cry me a river, man. These people go to Davos every year. They meet in Davos. And they don't care about the common man. They don't care one bit. And they talk about how they're gonna. That's not just Jews, guys. Most of these people are not Jewish, actually. And they talk about basically how. Well, they don't talk about it. They just go and do it. They start manipulating the markets. And I say this is a person who was on Wall Street for 10 years as a trader. I saw it firsthand. How they manipulate with a lot of liquidity, a lot of technology, and very fast. But again, guys, this blockchain thing. They understand what it is, and they understand that, as long as it remains decentralized and not under their auspices, there is absolutely nothing they can do. And yes, eventually, regular banks, and the monetary system that they've created, this what they call fractional banking, and even the Fed, is going to have to go slowly, bye-bye. So I'm asked the question, so why are we buying these coins? If the dollar doesn't have any value, so what are you gonna, and what are you gonna do with these coins? Well, we're creating ecosystems. This coin will be for this industry. That coin will be for that industry. This thing will be an investment. This one will be this. This one will be that. And we're gonna have to do it just like we did it with the dollar, with just some PR and global consensus that these things are worth something. The difference is, again, it goes back to what I said in the beginning. There are set supplies. And some of these things even have dynamic supplies, but even then, they have a set, like, the supply can't be more than a certain number for each one. Once that's set, if anything, they get burned, meaning coins get burned. The supply can always go lower, which is a good thing, right? So that's not the issue. Not only that, guys, you have this thing called NFT. What is an NFT? An NFT is when you have a piece of art or a book or anything that has a code attached to it. What is the purpose of that code? The purpose of that code is so that you know that this document, that this piece of art or book is the authentic, non-forgery, non-counterfeit document. And you know exactly the hands it passed through because it's tracked by this digital, it's not even a barcode, it's called a hash graph or transaction hash. So, for example, there's a company that is doing this with classic art. They are working with Sotheby's and with Christie's, who appraise art, and they also track the history of certain art pieces, whose hand is passed through, which families, which art houses, which galleries, and then they attach this NFT, they turn it into an NFT. They attach this code sequence to it, and now you can never forge anything again. Whether it's stuff from before, or original stuff, or books, you cannot forge anything again. Our friend Mordechai Ben Avraham, whom we interviewed, is releasing a book. He's also going to release it as an NFT. It's the first book of its kind about the Black American Jewish experience. And it's going to be an NFT. You can't reproduce, you can't infringe copyright. My friends, people don't understand. And we've only scratched the surface. And the majority of people don't understand what's going on. They are missing, it's not even that they're missing the boat. They're just, they don't know what's going on. Again, they're talking about Bitcoin and currency and who's using this and pizza and somebody bought pizza with it. They're just missing the point. They're losing the plot quickly. All you have to do is sit down, give yourself a crash course, read about it, research it. Whether it's Monero, Cardano, this, that. There are 11,000 tokens on planet Earth. Some of them are scam, some of them are BS. Some of them actually have a technology behind them that they're developing certain things. And at some point, we're not even going to need a stock market. That's just my own personal, what's called taich out of this. Why? Because again, who wants to invest in a company and then you have to wait for the earnings report, and then the earnings report comes out? Sometimes when earnings are, I'll tell you guys from personal experience, earnings report comes out and it's a good earnings report. The stock goes up. Sometimes the same exact type of earnings report comes out and the stock goes down. What's going on here? As opposed to here, where you have these companies or these projects releasing, they have a coin, right? And every so often, whether it's on social media, on Twitter, on YouTube, or Discord, there's some sort of rumor that comes out, or some sort of just news about this particular project that comes out, and it's very, very transparent. And if it's not transparent, people know automatically. They know it's a scam, and the market responds immediately. That's why it's so volatile, right? That's why you need to really have guts to. Another reason it's volatile because we've only scratched the surface. There's not that many people in it. The more people are in something, the less volatile it'll be. Meaning, the entire market cap of this whole ecosystem is $1.5 trillion. That's actually, my friends, that's nothing. When you compare it to the quadrillions of the entire global securities market, not just America. It's crazy. What are my thoughts on USDD? You know, there's a lot of these stable coins. There's USDD, there's USDC, there's the XUSD. I mean, they're coming out with XUSD, USDT. I think DAI, DAI. There's a lot of them. It's just a matter of security. Like a lot of people thought that USDT was not secure. It was, you know, you could hack it, you could tamper, you can this. They thought it was a scam. You know. It all depends what your preference is. You know, a lot of, you know, these things are pegged to the dollar. But again, what happens if something that's pegged to the dollar, but if what happens to the dollar itself becomes crap? So, again, is this about currency or is this about just essentially digital stock of companies that are not beholden to the SEC? They don't have to release earnings every month, earnings reports, and decentralized. And that's basically it, my friends. That's all she wrote. Really. And now, these governments and elites, they have to figure out a way how to get their hands on more of this stuff, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or other things. And they're opening trading desks and they're opening investment, you know, and portfolio and different things. And they, at the same time, they're poo-pooing on it to create what's called FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the regular common man. Because they know that we want to make money and we're afraid to not make, or we're afraid to lose. So maybe we'll just sell everything if we listen to these guys. I'm telling you guys, don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. Just do your thing. Don't listen to them, really. If Goldman Sachs tells you that crypto is a bad investment, do the exact, whatever they say, do the opposite. They're not telling you because they care. They're telling you because they want it to tank so they can get more. It's very simple, my friends. And if you know that these guys manipulate the stock market, what do you think they're doing with the crypto market? These people are master manipulators. It's the oldest game in town. But in this case, they know that this tech, unless they figure out a way how to regulate it, which it's going to be, right now we're in a covert war over that. And it's not even so covert. And they know that their game is up. They know that. For the first time in a very long time, actually maybe ever, the patrician, what's called the patrician class of people, can basically render the plebeian class, and it's not even the point, right? They can render them essentially useless, or they can put themselves on the same playing field. We can equal the, we can level the playing field. That's basically it, my friends. And this all connects with the idea of Mashiach. Why? Because it's basically you are leaving Gullus. The world has been in Gullus. It's been stuck in a Gullus of, hierarchies. And you could say America and other places, we have this perceived kind of what's called social mobility, right? Okay, yeah, you have a certain level of social mobility. Of course you do. You can come to America like my parents and other people like them, $300, and you can make something of yourself. Even you can become like Sergey Brin and start Google and all these kind of things. Even if you can say Sergey Brin got a little lost along the way. You could say that. But guys, you have to understand, it's one thing to have social mobility to a certain point, but it's quite another to, look at these families like Rockefeller and other families in Vanderbilt. This is called generational. It's not only generational wealth, it's generational power. Generational elite power that doesn't simply go away. Guys, Anderson Cooper? of CNN, he's a Vanderbilt. His mother is a Vanderbilt. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about these people are in the media, they're in the banks, they're in this. Again, not Jewish. A lot of them are not. And the ones that are basically Erev Rav. But these people aren't Jewish. This is something else entirely. I'm not going to get into what this is. But these people understand. They're not stupid. They understand that this blockchain thing is going to enable regular people to play with the big boys. And again, it's not even about money. It's about liberation. It's about, these guys invest in stocks. They get insider information. But if I get insider information and I take a trade on that, Chas v'shalom, I can go to prison. They made an example out of what's her name? Martha Stewart for 2 months. And this is a celeb, Why should it be? Why should it be that if I have information that I got, that I was wily enough and connected enough on a certain level to get some information about some company, and I took a trade based on that, the only reason that, like some people get caught, other people don't, but I took a trade based on that, why should it even be an issue? I took the time to research something. I took the time to make the right connections. Somebody told me about it, and that's it. This happens every day, my friends. It happens every day. It happens with, how do you think these congressmen and women get so wealthy? Nancy Pelosi. You think she got so wealthy on her $125,000, $200,000 taxpayer salary? No. She did, what is it called? She did insider trading. My friends, people are not getting it. We're at the precipice of something incredible. It is tied in with Mashiach. I'm still trying to crystallize exactly how. I'm not there yet, but as my Yemenite friend says, I'm not there yet. But, stuff is going to be crystallized more and more and more as we go along here. And at some point, this blockchain thing, we're going to see some really cool stuff. I'll tell you guys, we're going to see actual social media that's actually social as opposed to antisocial. We're going to see something, with the internet, whether it's this company called Internet Computer. Literally, there's a project called Internet Computer. They're trying to liberate the internet, or it's Holochain, or it's another company that comes along. We don't know. A lot of people make a lot of claims, but the point is that the world is going to leave Galut. It's going to have to leave Galus. The Jewish people are going to leave Galus, and by extension, the world is going to leave its own Galus, which is basically just people not being able to reach their full potential, whether it's financially or personally. Why? Because there is in fact an apparatus that seeks nothing more than control. We saw it with, what? But also we've seen it in history. They just want control, guys. That's on a, at best. At worst, they want to, Chas v'shalom, they want to control the population. That's what they want to do. And we know what the Torah, what Hashem says regarding all of that. He says, be fruitful and multiply. And, that's basically it. There was a sociologist, Thomas Malthus, 150 years ago, who thought that the world will run out of food because we have overpopulation and we're using up all the resources. Reality and history has proven this theory wrong over and over and over again. We understand that there's unlimited abundance, not just in the world, but in the universe. Unlimited energy which we haven't tapped into. And now we are, dealing with this blockchain stuff and this Bitcoin stuff. We're not realizing that Bitcoin, again, is the first one. It's the Zach Morris brick phone. And we're cranking so much energy just trying to mine it. And there's going to be something else that's going to come along, which is fast, uses zero energy, almost zero. And, we can build anything on it. And you can't hack it, and you can't control it. And that's basically the story, guys. And now, when you have data, and you're a guy like McAfee, and you want to release terabytes of information about people that did a lot of sinister things, a hard drive can be hacked into. But this thing called the blockchain, it's there wherever it is, and it's there forever. He even said, if this thing was around, he said that whenever there's a war, who writes history? The victor, the winner of the war. He said, if you had blockchain throughout the Middle Ages, throughout all these centuries, you would get both sides of the story of the conqueror and the conquered. You would get all the truth, both sides of the truth, both narratives, all narratives. Not just the narrative of the conqueror, who then writes the history. If you had blockchain at that time, even 200 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, we'd have a completely different written history, my friends. So, what does that mean? That means this thing is also tied into unabashed emes, truth. Whether it's what you agree with, what you want to hear, or what you don't want, the parts you don't want to hear. And that's where we're headed. And the governments also don't want that as well. Because truth to them is like, it gives them an allergic reaction. And I say this from personal experience, my friends. But B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to get there. So, that's basically it. In the words of the Holochain team, the slogan, think outside the blocks. Laila Tov.